In just 24 hours, Kash Patel's fiery testimony on Capitol Hill has exploded into a full-blown crisis of credibility. What he presented as ironclad proof of his leadership at the FBI is now collapsing under the weight of explosive new revelations that paint a picture of carefully engineered statistics designed to dazzle Congress and shield him from growing scandals. The grand Senate hearing room was packed. Heavy wooden tables gleamed under harsh overhead lights. Multiple cameras zoomed in from every angle, their red recording lights blinking like watchful eyes. Senators sat in rows, some scribbling notes furiously, others leaning back with arms crossed, the tension in the air so thick it felt hard to breathe. Kash Patel entered with a confident stride, shoulders squared, his expression one of absolute certainty. He carried a large black placard covered in bold numbers and charts, holding it up like a warrior raising his shield before battle. He stood at the witness table, eyes scanning the room. Then, with dramatic flair, he lifted the placard high for everyone to see. "We've arrested 8 of the top 10 most wanted fugitives in the world in just 14 months, Patel declared, his voice echoing through the chamber. That's twice as many as the entire 4 years combined before. This is what the men and women of the FBI are doing when they're well-resourced. Everyone should take a look at this. If people want to keep launching baseless, fraudulent personal attacks on me, fine. Keep the target on me. But the mission has never been better." For a moment, silence fell over the room. A few senators nodded. Some in the audience shifted in their seats. The bright lights caught every bead of sweat, every small gesture. Patel looked triumphant, as if he had just delivered a knockout blow. The camera slowly panned across the faces of lawmakers, capturing their reactions. But what he didn't know, what almost no one in that room knew at that exact moment, was that the ground beneath those bold claims was already cracking. According to brand new exclusive reporting from veteran investigative journalists Carol Leanig and Ken Dilanian, Patel's FBI had quietly imposed new policies that inflated arrest numbers and overstated the Bureau's progress in fighting crime. This came straight from a half-dozen law enforcement sources with direct knowledge of the changes. One current FBI official, speaking on the record despite the risks, told reporters, "They're absolutely padding the stats and claiming arrests they would not have claimed." Another former official added, "Agents inside the Bureau complained frequently about Patel's bogus arrest numbers. Kash is definitely engineering things to pad his stats." The hearing had barely ended when these revelations hit like a thunderclap. Patel had leaned heavily on those statistics not just to celebrate success, but to defend himself against swirling headlines about excessive drinking on the job, the controversial use of polygraph tests on his own agents, and allegations of firing employees for political reasons. Now, those very numbers were under intense scrutiny, raising serious questions about whether the FBI director had been straightforward with Congress. Back in the hearing room, the atmosphere had crackled with anticipation from the start. Patel didn't dodge the spotlight. Instead, he embraced it, waving that black placard like a banner of victory. His posture was defiant, his voice steady and proud. Senators fired questions, but he kept steering the conversation back to his numbers, daring anyone to challenge the data he proudly displayed. Yet behind the scenes, the story was far more complicated and far more troubling. The first major issue involved a quiet but significant rewrite of how the FBI counted arrests. Under Patel's new policies, if an FBI agent was simply present at a scene, assisting in any supporting role, or even riding along with another agency, that entire arrest got credited to the FBI. It didn't matter if the Bureau hadn't led the investigation, hadn't built the case, or if an agent never placed handcuffs on a suspect. This change had massive effects, especially in immigration enforcement. Starting in the summer and fall of the previous year, thousands of FBI agents were redirected into large-scale operations alongside IC officers and local police. They swept through cities including Minneapolis and Memphis in coordinated efforts to detain and deport individuals. Every single detention carried out primarily by IC or local forces, but with FBI personnel nearby, suddenly appeared in the FBI's arrest tallies. The numbers ballooned. Patel could now stand before the nation's lawmakers and boast about 45,000 violent offenders arrested, more than double the previous year. On paper, it looked like a stunning turnaround. In reality, much of that spike came from moving numbers from one agency's column to the FBI's through clever policy adjustments. The room would have fallen into stunned silence if the full details had emerged right then. Even more striking was the manipulation of the FBI's legendary Most Wanted list, one of the most recognizable symbols in American law enforcement. This list features the 10 most dangerous fugitives, individuals hunted sometimes for years. Patel proudly claimed his team had captured 8 of them in just 14 months. But according to sources who spoke with Leanig and Dilanian, 4 of those 8 had been added to the list within a single month of their capture. 2 were added within 24 hours. And in one jaw-dropping case, a fugitive was placed on the list and arrested in just 1 hour and 13 minutes. Seasoned law enforcement veterans with decades on the job could barely contain their disbelief. Operations to seize dangerous fugitives don't happen in an hour and 13 minutes. One source said plainly, building a solid case, securing surveillance warrants, coordinating multiple teams, and executing a high-risk takedown takes careful planning, time, and resources. You cannot accomplish all of that in the time it takes to watch a short movie. What you can do quickly, however, is add a name to the list right before you already plan to make the arrest, and then celebrate it as a major strategic victory under new leadership. The camera angles in the hearing room would have told their own story. Close-ups on Patel's determined face, wide shots showing the senator's mixed expressions, and lingering views of the placard that now symbolized something entirely different. Carol Leonig joined the discussion as a senior investigative reporter whose byline topped the story. She described how she and her colleague had been chasing tips for weeks about statistics that seemed juiced or unfairly inflated. Then came Patel's Senate appearance. Instead of directly addressing tough questions about his leadership, he dramatically waved that placard and pointed to the very numbers insiders had flagged. That moment crystallized their reporting. They went back to sources, double-checked facts, and the two key findings emerged clearly. Michael Feinberg, a former assistant special agent in charge at the FBI and now a national security analyst, pulled no punches. He is widely viewed as a clown within the organization, Feinberg said, but he's a clown with a flamethrower, and a clown with a flamethrower can still do a lot of damage. He detailed the harm. Careers ruined through politically motivated firings, important programs deprioritized in favor of immigration enforcement, and the slow erosion of the Bureau's institutional integrity through statistical manipulation. Feinberg also highlighted a broader failure of oversight in Congress. Many of the crimes Patel repeatedly touted, murder, rape, robbery, were primarily state and local offenses. The FBI often played only a supporting role through task forces. Yet Patel presented the drops in these crimes as personal and bureau-wide triumphs, effectively taking credit for the hard work of local police departments and sheriffs across the country. The senators in that hearing room had asked questions, but the sharpest challenges never landed. Patel danced around the tough issues. The placard became his main defense. Now, less than a day later, the public was seeing a very different picture. Inside FBI offices nationwide, the mood was complex. Dedicated agents still reported for duty every day. They worked long hours on complex cases involving national security threats, cybercrime, public corruption, and violent criminals that had nothing to do with immigration sweeps or political score settling. They protected witnesses, comforted victims, and pursued justice with quiet professionalism. Many felt deep discomfort with the games being played at the highest levels. Statistics and press conferences meant little to them. Real results and protecting the public did. Yet when leadership began rewriting rules to create impressive-looking charts, some agents reached a breaking point. A few decided to speak to reporters, knowing the personal and professional risks involved. Their courage added weight to the unfolding story. Kash Patel had walked boldly into that Senate hearing room. He held up his large black placard, covered in carefully chosen numbers. He challenged every senator to dispute his claims. He spoke of doubled arrests, historic captures of the world's most dangerous fugitives, and a bureau performing better than ever. Today, that bold performance is facing its biggest test. Every major claim now carries serious questions. The 45,000 violent offenders, the 8 most wanted successes, the narrative of a transformed, highly effective FBI. Multiple sources, including current officials, describe a pattern of policy tweaks, creative accounting, and perfectly timed additions to public lists that transform modest operational efforts into headline-grabbing victories. The men and women who carry the FBI badge continue their vital work with dedication. They show up. They build cases. They take down real threats. They do not chase applause or political favor, but they watch as the institution they serve has its reputation gambled on inflated figures and staged announcements. The hearing gavel has long since fallen. The bright lights have dimmed. The placard has been set aside. But the questions raised by this reporting are only growing louder with each passing hour. They go to the heart of trust in federal law enforcement, the integrity of leadership, and the importance of honest oversight. This story reveals much more than disputed numbers. It exposes how power can be defended, how institutions can be pressured, and how dedicated professionals still try to uphold their mission even when the spotlight shifts to controversy at the top. If this dramatic unraveling of Kash Patel's Capitol Hill testimony shocked you, if the contrast between the bold claims and the reported reality left you stunned, hit subscribe right now. Turn on notifications so you never miss the next chapter. Comment below with your thoughts. These aren't just numbers on a placard. They represent how power really works in Washington, how truth fights the surface, and why staying informed matters more than ever.